Good afternoon, Vishnu,
Hi, good afternoon, Salman.
and welcome to CWS as it is. I hope all is well.
Yes, thank you, and I must also extend my condolences to you on the loss of your colleague, your
Thank
friend.
you. Thank you
Mm.
so much. Vishnu, tell us a little bit about you and why why are you in business?
All right, a little bit about me. I I love business. I grew up in business. One side of my family, my dad's side, has been in business over 100 years. Uh, Various generations, various businesses, and then the other side of my business, other side of my family, has always been in education.
Hmm.
So I very early on learned to marry those two and to be able to achieve my goals. And I did that pretty early and then realized that this is really something that a lot more people can use. And the more I learn, the more am able to share.
Hmm.
So it's a never ending cycle.
Awesome. You are a business coach, among other things, but also the owner of Action Coach. Was that your first business?
Now that's probably business number 10 or so. My first business out of uh, UG was actually a distribution company.
Hmm.
And because of my engineering skills, I was able to compete with many of the larger distribution companies because of my fleet management skills. And it allowed me to walk away from my business at a very early age. I started at 19 and was able to walk away at 27.
Wow. Before we get into the old Action Coach part of your business, let's go back to the early years, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, competing with some, other companies and so on. What did you think you brought to the table that made you so competitive and so successful at such a young age?
I think the main thing would have been the engineering skill. In engineering, you learn not to waste any resources
Ah,
uh, and efficiency. So I think efficiency allowed me to really do much better with much less resources, less personnel, less vehicles, less of everything. And then when you analyze the competition who are sitting on a ton of resources and not making very good use of them. So that I think really allowed us to be able to use our resources to generate the funding much faster.
so the lack of resources, in a sense, or less resources, was the mother that made you very inventive.
Yeah, it was that fuel to the fire.
I like that. So let's go to Action Coach. Here you are, young. You are advising people. Why don't you tell us about Action Coach then, rather than me?
Well, I at 27, after I was able to walk away, I had a lot of free time on my hands. I spent a lot of it in the gym, on the tennis court, and then also I became the president of the Upper Quarantine Chamber at that time.
Hmm.
I noticed that one of the weaknesses in the private sector, and this is now my 13th year, I joined the Chamber of Commerce when I was 22. I realized that it was a lack of the skills that are necessary. I don't think we have a lack of commitment. There are many people out there really committed to Guyana and they really want to move themselves, their organizations, and this country forward, but they don't possess the skills that are necessary.
Hmm.
I've always learned that. I learned that from home. If you want to really achieve something, never mind how hard you want to work at it, if you don't have the skill, it's like in Ghana they say throwing water on a duck's back.
Hmm.
And I continue to see that even in the private sector, we were able to write a project to USAID, which was approved, and they brought trainers from all over the world to train a group of us in the upper quarantine in some very pertinent issues that would help us move the private sector forward. I then, I really fell in love with training and being able to pass on that training. In 2010, I came across Action Coach. I was then still living in Borvis. My wife had taken over the business by then for a few years, and by using a lot of their techniques, which I identified very closely with, I was doing my MBA at the same time. I realized that this is really something that is needed in Guyana. Action Coach is in over 60 countries, it's 23 years old, originated out of Australia. And at that particular time, I thought, this would really be an answer to a lot of the business issues Guyanese businesses are facing. And I planned it out. I had to end up moving to Georgetown for being able to set up Action Coach, among some other reasons, such as having my daughter continue her education in Georgetown. And yeah, the timing was right. We own the franchise about 1.5 years now, and it's really being able to help us and help many of our clients really get to their goals much faster.
I'm curious about something, and I want to go back to that part of your time. 22 years of age, you joined the quarantine chamber, upper quarantine. What would make a 22 or inspire a 22-year-old to be part of a chamber? What were you thinking at that time?
Well, my family, for 4 generations, has grown up on both sides of the Quarantine River. So we are from both sides of the Quarantine River. I think sometimes we claim both countries.
Uh-huh.
In Suriname, for example, being a member of the Chamber of Commerce is compulsory. You can't do anything as a business if you're not a member of the chamber. Mm-hmm. For the simple reason that they help you through the process. They are able to advocate on your behalf if there are any issues facing you. They're just that support center that helps businesses grow and that advises businesses and provides that framework. So I came with that mindset, and that never left me. I came to Guyana when I was 14. That never left me. So when I started my business, as a 19-year-old, I got it running. At 22, I said, okay, where's the nearest Chamber of Commerce? And let me go and see what support they're going to be able to provide to me.
All right. MBA, PhD candidate, successful business. Where did this urge and drive? And it seems like a silly question because one side of your family is rich in education and the other side in business. But I'm going to ask you anyway. Where does this drive and urge for education come from?
I always hear people complaining, and I am never a complainer. I think if you ask anyone about me, there's no complaining. I learned very early on from both sides of the family, both the business side and the education side, that if you want to fix something, if you want to get the results, go figure out the way it's done, adapt it to your situation, and get into action. There is no complaining. And therefore, all the things, and people usually look at what are the secrets to success. And one of the quotes in our company is that there are no secrets to success, just books you haven't read with and conversations you haven't had yet. So in order for me to really get to a position where I can solve my own issues, solve my company, my organization, my country's issues, I need to get the education that will help me do so.
All right. Let me be fair to this enterprise action coach. What exactly, somebody now tuning in, what exactly do you do?
Great. So we really help grow businesses. We help them gain the profits that they're looking at. And some of the companies are not really after profit. Some of them, the business owners, just want more time for themselves. Some of them want a stronger team. So whatever their immediate need is and their future need is, what I do in the beginning, and our model is that we have a complimentary hour with them, so we can determine where do they want to go, and then basically 2 parts: are they committed to getting there, and are they coachable or trainable? Mm-hmm. If they have those 2 ingredients, they would generally make a good client. We would make them a proposal, and then we get to work with them. And it's the first 3 months is all about education in the basics of business, which if you don't have those basics, it doesn't even make sense being in business. And then we go on to the bigger things. But what we've noticed is that within the first 3 months, whatever goals would have been set in that first 1 hour are usually wrapped up. Whatever they thought was their 1-year goal, in the first 3 months, that's usually wrapped up just because the basics start working. We then need to really urge them to think bigger.
Why are you so confident that your strategy works? Give us some 1 or 2 success stories.
Well, as I mentioned, our own company, which was taken over by my wife, and she may not like it, but I use it as a laboratory.
Yes.
So all the 500 plus techniques that the company utilizes to really grow a business fast, I've tested almost all in her
Wow.
company, in my company, and in anybody else who would allow me. I think the organizations that I serve, and there are probably 2 dozen that I serve now. Um, and this is something that I would really encourage youngsters and anyone else in this country. If you want to learn more skills, go volunteer with the organization, become a member of an
Yeah.
organization, because
Yeah.
that's a really good place to learn more skills and to practice them. Many of these organizations don't have the required resources, human resources to do the work that is necessary. And you coming on board with all your ideas, which still have to be approved by their board, and then getting their support as well allows you to practice those ideas which you may not want to necessarily immediately do in your company, and it builds a lot of confidence. And you
Brilliant.
have you have 10 board members, you have 20 board members looking at your every move, so it really helps also building your accountability. Unlike a lot of people, what they do in their own companies, the bright ideas they wake up in the morning with, they try during the day, and there is nobody to back them up, to look at them, hold them accountable, and make sure that they fulfill their responsibilities. I think that's a great way of building skills, and I continue to do that up to today.
How does one find you, Vishnu?
I'm everywhere.
Mr. Ubiquitous. So
Yeah,
how do they tap into your company? How do they locate you?
I'm at 122 Parade Street.
Mhm.
But however, I would urge any business, any entrepreneur to become a member of their local chamber. If they're based in Georgetown, the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce is a good resource. At the Chamber of Commerce, we've just set up. We've just become the executing agency for the CDB. So we're going to be busy rolling out so many business development services that we really need our business community in Guyana, both existing and aspiring, to get on board as quickly as possible and forget about the money. I mean, without the education, money is not going to help. I,
Incidentally, you've just become the new president of the Georgetown Chambers. Congratulations, Vishnu.
I thank you, thank you.
Congratulations. When you, I suppose that you've been there for some time before you became president. But when you took over that portfolio, um, do you have new ideas that you would like to implement, or you want to continue the same ideas and strategies?
Well, I was fortunate that when I moved to town some 3 years ago, that I ended up in a team at the chamber that is very progressive. I think we have a very large membership that's continuing to grow. It's getting to near 200. But what I've noticed is that there is a common goal for private sector development, and we've worked as a team. All the executive management committees to date have really worked as a team.
Mm-hmm.
So 80-90% of what has been happening over the past 3 years, past 5 years, is what we will take forward. A lot of it took quite a while to get where it is today. And I must give credit to the immediate past president, Mr. Lance Hines, who continues to serve on the new executive management committee. It's rare that you find willing mentors in Guyana. I think
Yes.
that's probably the biggest weakness we have in our business community, where so much is shrouded in secrecy. And I'm really thankful that I came in at a point in time when at the Georgetown Chamber, I was actually under the wings of a very willing mentor, because I I continue to study. I'm at a place in education where not many people are, but that doesn't mean that I can't be educated by any portion in Guyana. A sweeper on the road can teach me to sweep better. A driver can teach me to drive better. A chamber president can teach me how to be more diplomatic.
Mm-hmm.
He can teach me all the lessons that he would have learned over his decade plus of service. So if I understand that, and if I go with an open and willing mind, there's no limit to what you can educate yourself with.
This humility and obvious modesty aside, what are two or possibly one strategy or idea you are eager to implement?
I think the growth of our membership so that we can become equal partner in the entire discourse in our country. I think the biggest weakness is that we sit as a voluntary organization across the table from the government, from donor agencies, from all these large organizations which have fully funded representatives working nonstop on supporting their positions, where we in the private sector, it is volunteers who pay to be members of this organization having to take time off from their regular duties to go represent the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to be able to change that, and that requires really having the number of members who can support this work. Whenever we make progress, it doesn't just benefit the less than 1% of the business community that are our members, it benefits 100% of the business community. So in my immediate goal is starting to get 2, 3, 4% of the business community to get on board and support the work of private sector development, so that we can employ lawyers, we can employ market analysts, we can employ economists to really get to analyze what's happening in Guyana and develop proposals which we can then sit as equal partners at the table and have these proposals really put into action. And that is something we haven't gotten as yet. And I'm hoping that during my term, we'll take it a step closer to becoming a reality.
Knowing you're a man of strategy, Vishnu, how hopeful are you?
That this will happen?
Yes.
I'm 100% confident. I've
Awesome.
I've understood the value of teams. When I was much younger, I could always rely on myself, and I was always able to achieve what I needed to achieve. But I think probably around 23, 24, as my own team started growing, I realized that each one of us has multiple gifts. And I found mine very early, and I come from a very supportive family, extended family. So I understood that all of us have gifts, and if I can find those gifts in my team members and help them discover it and nurture it and develop it and use it, they become very powerful. And I'm very happy that I'm part of so many teams that are now being able to do the work that is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping to discover many more leaders as well and give them the tools, the wake-up call, that we can't sit and wait for anybody to do this for us. Unfortunately, if you analyze a lot of the persons who have to do this work for us, if I don't see it happening. So I'm really hoping, and I'm really working on making sure that we generate enough of the middle that is really capable. And it's a simple technique that I've always used for doing that. I don't know if you want to use it now.
With this wide collection of experience and I would say amalgamation of assets, as you put it, where do you see Action Coach in 10 years?
I see it as being a critical driver in Guyana's economic development. I already see it growing to such an extent that we very soon may need more coaches. We are already looking at possible candidates. We're also rolling out training programs for many of the companies that need their managers and their supervisors, that need their skills upgraded, and we've seen great success with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want Action Coach to serve as a stimulant for all the other organizations that some of them are mandated by law to do what we are currently doing, that we can actually share some of our skills, share some of our resources to get every single organization in this country which is tasked with economic development to actually deliver. So that's what I see happening, and it's already happening. We're already seeing the momentum building. But in 10 years, I want to be able to look back and say, well, Action Coach did something great for Guyana.
Awesome. It brings me to my next question. I'll call some words: results, trust, pride, value, knowledge. There are 6 more reasons to choose Vishnu Doerga. How do you pronounce your name, Vishnu? I don't want to mess it up here on live television. How do you pronounce your last name?
Doerga.
Oh, you see? Oh, simple as it looks. Vishnu Doerga as a business coach. Tell us what comes to mind as you sit there hearing those words.
Well, those words actually come from our market research, where when we were just three months into Action Coach's launch, we did a survey. We asked people, why do you continue to do business with us? And these were some of the words that came out. And if they are that important to our existing clients, and that's what they see in myself and in my company, it's important that those looking for such qualities can easily identify them. So yeah, that's where it comes from. I think my main one is result orientation. I like knowing what the challenge is so that I can deliver the results.
I want to go to the chat room for a bit. One question: do you believe that your organization is heard adequately by the government?
I'm also the chair of the National Standards Council, which puts me in close contact with the Minister of Business. I think I've been at this for 13 years, so I think it must be hard, but people have their own ideas as well, and what usually happens is that they want to try their own ideas. I'm hoping that, and that's why, again, a lot of the things that are government related, I rather channel through the Georgetown Chamber. I don't like being a one-man show.
Right.
The Georgetown Chamber, whatever we propose, must come from our membership. They must believe that this needs to be done. So that I'd rather have the government hear the Georgetown Chamber's collective view on where we need to go.
That's brilliant.
But in the meantime, those in charge have come with their own ideas. You have many people who have put their faith in them, and they're operating at the best of their abilities. It's now about time for us to see the results of those efforts, and it's up to them to decide. Let's find the professionals, find the experts who can support us. In many other systems around the world, it's not politicians, it's not government or figureheads who make any decisions. They listen to their experts, they listen to the professionals, and they then inform them on what the best possible course of action is to do, and all the figureheads really do is press the play button.
Next question. Do you feel that the government adequately supports the private sector? Is there enough transparency between the private sector and the government?
The current framework is not as optimal as it could be. And again, we are working on, as I mentioned earlier, from a private sector perspective, we haven't been a very strong partner for reasons that I mentioned earlier. And until we address that, it's difficult to call those we have to work with as not willing partners. We first of all have to develop ourselves into a credible, capable partner. And I think unless we do so, it would be unwise to criticize the current framework. I would rather be in a position to help create a framework that allows us to be this partner that we actually have a very transparent relationship. But in the meantime, we are being consulted on all the various aspects, activities of what is happening in Guyana. We give our input. And of course, as any consumer of services, because that's what the private sector is, we are a consumer of government services, we would always want it to be better. The same way our clients demand better of us as businesses, we would always want better from the government. However, it's a government of the people. We are the people. So if we want better, we also have to do better.
Before I ask the last question, I must, well, it's not the last one. Before I ask the last question, I must ask you one of my own. If the people, the team, your extended family urged you, support you for political office, mayor or president, would you take it up?
It's actually part of my second retirement. I do think, and again, I think it could be done so much better. But before I take that step, I need to educate myself about political science, governance, everything else that is necessary so that if and when I do so, I'm well equipped to deliver the results.
Vishnu. I'm bringing you back on this on my other show. So the next question is, what can the government do to unleash the private sector?
Be the facilitator that they're supposed to be. In any country, a government is supposed to create a facilitative environment that allows the private sector to easily invest particular issues such as security, infrastructure, energy, telecommunications. All these facilitative aspects need to be put in place so that we as investors can determine that the reward will be greater than the risk and go ahead. But if we continue to end up in a situation where it seems riskier than what the reward is worth, it's going to be unlikely that you'll have that widespread boom in investment. And I think on the other hand as well, it is really educating businesses about their rights and their obligations. As a business, there are many things that you also have to be aware of. You earn your income based in Guyana. It means that you also have to make sure all your obligations are met, because if we don't pay our fair share of our obligations, then how will the facilitators of this country be able to execute their mandate? So it's a situation where both partners need to play their part. But I'm hopeful, and I'm doing what I can in the meantime.
Next president. Next statement in the chat room. He's awesome, and 3 exclamation marks. And then Michelle Foster. Who is his typical client?
We've had clients from startups to companies who have 500 plus employees. Our ideal client is somewhere between 20 to 100 employees. It's a nice sweet spot. We are able to grow those really fast.
Mm-hmm.
But we've noticed some amazing numbers with startups. We've noticed some with very small, where they're just 2 people in the company being able to double their revenues in 2-3 months. But our sweet spot is actually 20 to 100 employees, because then there's sufficient manpower to do a lot of to execute a lot of the strategies that would be put in place. When there are too few people in the business, they're usually always busy with the day-to-day. And we always need to be able to pull out a handful of people who will be busy growing the business. When it gets extremely large, the 100 plus employees, it's like the difference between a speedboat and a Titanic. It's easy to turn around a speedboat. To turn around the Titanic takes a little bit more effort, but it's doable, and we are doing it. But I hope that answers the question. I usually like rating it by employees, because without the team, there's a lot of work to be done anyhow. So,
what is your deepest fear for doing business in Guyana?
I have no fears.
You have no fear. Okay.
Yeah, no fears.
This entrepreneurial spirit, do you believe you were born with it, or you developed it?
Both. I'm pretty sure it's both, because I probably started entrepreneurial activities when I was like 5 years old. These hopscotch tiles, we found them in one of my friends' storeroom, and we started selling them to the girls who were playing hopscotch. We sold papayas. So I think it was always, in my blood of how do we take resources and turn it into revenues. And I think it's also, I thought I was a pretty good business owner at 27, being able to walk away from the business. I thought it was really good until education really hit me all over again. And I realized how little I knew and how little I still know today.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because of all this education, the things that I probably took 7 years to do back then, I could have been done with it in 2-3 years max now. So I think both. And even I have a lot of clients who are second generation business owners. So they didn't necessarily start the business. They have to take over now. And I see that it can also be strongly developed. I've seen people develop from being very hands-off from a business, very risk-averse, to understanding that business is a game, and if you understand the rules and execute well, it's almost impossible to fail. Almost impossible to fail. So I think both, but in my case, I'm pretty sure it's both.
Okay. And Michelle asks, does he focus on a certain sector or industry?
Any business, we believe that business sits on a chassis. There are 5 ways of growing a business, and we have businesses, we have clients in almost many of the main industries in Guyana and some of the very niche industries. So they all sit on the same chassis. So once we identify that, it makes it very clear on how we should grow them, where do we start. But it's not industry specific. Usually one of the weaknesses with business in Guyana is that people start a business because they had a particular technical skill. And they were able, like the way I was able to develop my distribution company because I had an engineering skill. And I would actually play Superman whenever there's a problem because I'm the most technically skilled portion. I can solve the problem. I think that's the biggest weakness you can have in a company. I rather you develop into a manager with all the management skills, and you need none of the technical skills. You don't need to know how to do engineering, how to be a doctor, how to be a lawyer, if you understand how to manage resources well. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, any industry.
What is next for Vishnu, A, as Action Coach's owner, and B, as president of Georgetown Chamber?
So as Action Coach, to roll out as many of the programs as the company has available. We've just scratched the surface with about 3 or 4 of our programs so far. To develop a team of coaches as well so that we can impact a much greater part of Guyana. We have clients coming from Berbice and from Linden, leaving at 9 at night, 8, 9 at night, which I would have loved to have facilities in each one of the regions that can help people there. And then to be able to also walk away to some extent from Action Coach because a team will be able to take it forward. For the Georgetown Chamber, I'm elected for a year. I'll make sure that we strengthen our base significantly and that we really start to delight our membership, that we really start taking care of our members to an extent that they may not have experienced in the past. Because that's why people become members of organizations, not because they have money to donate. It's because they're also looking for a benefit from the organization. And we have provided benefits. We want to scale that up so significantly that that little investment in the membership fee seems insignificant. You asked for 2, but the third one is, getting done with his doctorate, which has another 2 years to go. And then preparing for what you asked me earlier, possible.
Well, Vishnu, thank you. Thank you very much. And I wish you all the best and much success in all your endeavors.
Sure. Thank you, Salman. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
I knew you, but I really don't. There's more to you than quoting scriptures and impressing folks. And it'd be sad to know that you are never here. If we turn on all the music and we clear the smoke, and I refuse to be part of the crowd that can only recognize you by the things you do. They want to see you move, but I want to know your ways. So I made up in my mind, in this season I'll be chasing you. I'm after your heart, and you're the reason I'm on this road alone. In this season, find me chasing you. I'm after your heart, and you're the reason I'm on this road alone. Day and night, night and day, I will never stop till you become my dwelling place. And to be where you are, this is my desire.